So in other words, a machine learning system is one that takes input from somewhere, uses that to somehow implicitly or explicitly model the world, and then changes its behavior over time, hopefully for the better. Almost as long as I could remember, I knew I wanted to be a professor. I had been told by my teachers that I should try to find some way to find some outlet for my desire to teach. And being a professor would combine both my desire to profess at people all day long and my desire to do research in one job. And so I really knew I wanted to do that. I'm just pointing out that, you're missing an explanation of what it is. Maybe it doesn't have to happen in the first chapter.
Sure, I know, yeah.
But it's an obvious question that someone's going to ask. I think the best way to understand what I do is to think about it in terms of interactive artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is the art and the science and the engineering of building systems that are able to adapt on their own. Basically, it's a way of getting machines to act as intelligently as human beings, or at least as intelligently as ants or bees or other creatures we think of as having intention and goals. The interactive part turns out to be very important. The goal there is to build intelligent systems that not only learn from the environment, but learn from people, and learn how to interact with people, to act like people, to predict people. So a lot of my work is about taking mathematics, taking computing, taking a little bit of engineering, a little bit of systems work, and trying to understand social interactions between people. I remember always being into math and computers. All my teachers touched me in one way or the other. I remember all of them, but Mr. McKissick in particular came along at just the right time in my life. He was my 7th grade teacher. I convinced him that he should keep all of his grade books electronically. Right. And so I wrote him a program that would let him put in grades for all of his students, and then it would calculate a final grade. That was before they had hard drives. And so everything was on cassette tape. So at the very end of the year, he had so many grades on there, it would take 45 minutes to save it and 45 minutes to bring it up on the cassettes. And back then a cassette only was 90 minutes and 45 minutes aside. And so for his final grades, he put the final grades in there, and we sat there to see if it was going to be too long for the tape. I grew up in a neighborhood that was more or less all black, right? All the way up through high school until I went to college, more or less. Atlanta, then and now, was one of 10 cities in the country where the average income of the black American was higher than the national average. Anchors were black, the politicians were black. It was just the way I grew up. I didn't really think about it. Then I got to Georgia Tech, and I remember walking across campus the first week and realizing I was the only black person I could see. And there was a sea of students. It was between classes, and I was the only one. And it was a rather eye-opening experience for me. I had a cop pull me over once in Boston, and I rolled down the window, and when I did, he pulled out his gun, he put it in my face, and guns are very big when they're pointed in your face, let me tell you. And he said, "Don't move." I won't even blink. And he said I had run a yellow light and it turned red before I got to the end of the intersection. I don't even think he gave me a ticket. The bigger challenges that I've had to face in my career and sort of as I move through have less to do with that directly, that kind of overt, irritating, people thinking you can't be what you actually are because they have these expectations. It's been less that and more being the first. I was the first black person at MIT in the AI lab to get a PhD. I was the only black researcher in my group at AT&T Labs. I was the first and only black professor in Georgia Tech's College of Computing. I remain so. So I get to be a lot of firsts. When I think back to some of the more challenging times in my life in terms of whether I really wanted to go down this career or whether I really wanted to keep walking across campus and only see myself and no one else who looked like me, I always also had at the same time someone I could talk to, a small group of friends or a small group of mentors who could help me through. And so I think if I had advice for anyone who was worried that they were going to be the only one, whether it was their sex or their race or their height or their interests or their sexual orientation, or whatever it is about that person. My advice would be there are lots of people who have been where you're trying to go, and there are lots more people who are trying to do what you're trying to do right now. And you should find them, and you should create a community with them and seek help. I had a chance to build this house. I had a chance to pay somebody to build this house. And one of the things that I really wanted and what I really cared about was getting the house completely wired and set up. For two reasons. One, because I like that sort of thing. I'm big into movies and I like to watch a lot of TV. But also because I wanted to be able to easily model what it is that I did. So it was actually, I claimed it was a part of a research project, right? So I've got speakers everywhere throughout the house, and this is just one room, but you'll see them everywhere in the house. I have speakers. I have little devices that pick up IR and send it down to a central computer down in the basement. I have TVs everywhere. I had a really nice excuse for buying all of this equipment so that I could actually do some research. I could actually model what it is various different people did. And working with I was a student at a time, he then became a postdoc of mine. He rigged up my house so that he could see everything I did. So when I pressed this button, it would show up somewhere and it would be recorded. When I pressed the button for play, it would be recorded, and recorded everything that I did over a period of 2 or 3 weeks. Then he did the same thing with himself. He did the same thing with 2 or 3 of his friends. And what we discovered is if you can watch somebody for about 2 days, and that's everything you need to know about what it is they want to do next. If you're lucky, if you're very lucky, then you get to do for a living something you would have done for free. And I have a lot of obsessions, a lot of things that I really care about. And one of the things that I love about my job as a computationalist, but also as a professor, is that it's a hobby for me. It's something that I would have tried to figure out how to do anyway. If I had to say one thing that mattered the most about everything in my life, whether it's doing research on modeling human beings, whether it's teaching, whether it's outreach, whether it's my job as an associate dean, at the end of the day, it's all about passion. You can't get a PhD unless you want it, unless you feel passionate about something. There's no other job like being a professor, but it's a lot of work. And you're going to make it through only if you really care. It's like anything else in life. You have to want it. And if you want it, you find some people to help you and some people to talk to, and you're disciplined, and you dedicate yourself, 9 times out of 10 you'll make it.